Wait till she starts. So many great faces here today. Thank you all for saying hello. That was such a nice way to start. Hello to all of you. To anyone I missed, Rashika, Maria, Jennifer, hello. So nice to see everybody for today's class on Jolly Holiday Macarons, which is going to be such a journey. We're going to be making macarons from scratch. We're going to make buttercream to fill them with. We're going to make royal icing to decorate them with. And so we're just going to go all the way through from start to finish. I have some samples here you can kind of look at, but today we're going to be making red macarons. French macarons, and Kana is French. So I was sort of joking before class that my pronunciation is probably terrible. But French macaron, for all of you who are familiar, a delicious meringue-based cookie made with almond flour. They're chewy, they're crispy, they're just like so delicious. Kana said that was perfect, so that's great. I'll take that as a big compliment. But my name is Katie. For those I haven't met, I'm a baking instructor here at Michael's. I'm also a pastry chef. And a food writer as well. And you can find some of my recipes around online and things like that. But I'm so happy to be here with you with all these great holiday classes. There's a gingerbread workshop next week, just a heads up for anybody who hasn't yet signed up for that. That's going to be really fun for the whole family. So feel free to show up with everybody around and bake along. And if you are baking along today, I know some of you have aprons on. I can see it there. Definitely feel free to ask questions as we go. I will be moving somewhat quickly because we have a lot to do. But definitely feel free to be in the chat, ask as many questions as you like. I can see it pretty good from here, so I'll answer you as best as I can. But when we get a chance, Kana, come on down. I'm going to show you what we're working with today. So these are just a little sneak peek. We've got some fun ones here. I did make some green ones ahead, so they'll be ready, but the red ones we're going to use, and maybe we'll do like a two-tone. We'll do red and green together and make them really fun and pretty. But macarons, if you haven't made them before, extremely simple in terms of ingredient list. I've got egg whites. My egg whites are at room temperature. This is 3 large egg whites. I'm using large egg whites. If you don't have them at room temperature, that's fine. Don't worry about it. They'll whip up just as nicely. But room temperature egg whites do tend to kind of increase in volume a bit more than cold egg whites. And they kind of get there a little bit faster as well. So that could be really helpful. I've got granulated sugar. That's going to complete our meringue. We're going to whip those together. And yes, Miligrita, so in the description of the class, you'll find the recipe. Maybe Kana can upload a link here as well, just so everybody has it. But yes, we definitely have the recipe for you ready to go. And while she does that, in my bowl here, in my sifter, I've got powdered sugar and I've got almond flour. Now I'm going to sift those together, and you can see the almond flour that I'm working with. I've got a little bit in the bowl here. It's a super fine blanched almond flour. So you'll see that in the store. If you see one that's raw almond flour where it has like little bits of skin and things in it, you want it to be as fine and pure and, you know, just all one color as much as possible. So fine, super fine blanched almond flour is what you're looking for. And that's really it. In terms of coloring our macarons, I've got some gel color. That's going to really keep our, thank you so much, Kana. There we go. She put the link to the handout there. Yes, and we will talk about that, Brianna, absolutely. And hello, Christine. So I've got the gel coloring here that's going to keep our macaroon batter from thinning out. We want the most potent color, especially for something like holiday macarons where we're making this really deep red. Gel color is going to be your best friend there. And then, of course, as we get into doing all sorts of different decorations and stuff like that, we've got sanding sugar. My daughter had some like little stars in one of her sprinkle mixes from Michael's. I stole that out to use as the top for some Christmas trees. I've got toothpicks that's going to help me with some of my designs. So if you are baking along, grab some toothpicks as well. I also have some like glitter spray and fun things like that. And to pipe the macarons, you will need a piping bag. I've got just a plastic piping bag, but fabric will work nicely as well. And a medium round tip. So this is about a ½ inch or so, maybe a little bit less, just a medium round. You don't want the one that's too big because that's going to give you some problems in terms of spread once you're piping. And let's see, so deep tea, can we use almond flour from Costco? As long as it's a super fine blanched almond flour, absolutely. If your almond flour, for some reason, if you touch it, it's a little bit coarse, just pop it in your food processor and give it a blend just to make sure it's really nice and fine. And yes, it does need to be almond flour, although I have worked with things like oat flour for macarons, works really nicely if you prefer oat flour, but all-purpose flour and things like that will not work for this recipe. So you do want any type of nut flour. It could be pistachio flour, almond flour, or oat flour. It does work well in an equal ratio to the almond flour. So that's a fun twist as well that you can do. So I'm going to get some of this out of the way because we're going to start whipping right off the bat. Gonna dive right in. And if you are baking along, my oven is preheated to 325 degrees. So you can get that ready to go as well. My cute little macarons can go over here. Come with me. All right, so we're gonna start with our meringue. So again, my egg whites are at room temperature. Now, somebody asked about what happens if my meringue doesn't whip up properly, and that can happen for a few different reasons. The main reason that would happen is if there's any sort of fat in your bowl. So sometimes before I start, just as an extra insurance policy, I take a little bit of lemon juice or vinegar on a paper towel, and I just wipe the inside of my bowl before I put my egg whites in. And you could do the same thing with your whisk attachment, just to make sure any fat that's in there, any grease that's left over from any other baking recipes, just gets neutralized with that acid. And that's really going to help your egg whites whip up properly, as well as make sure there's no yolks in there. That's a big one that can keep your egg whites from whipping up. So we are going to start it off. I'm going to get my mixer going. I'm not adding any sugar yet. And if anyone can hear me along the way with all the whipping that's going to happen, let me know. I'm going to start it up. All right. And now when it starts to go from something that's very clear to a little bit more opaque and frothy, that's when we're going to start adding our sugar. Can you use Parchment egg white? You can, absolutely. That would be fun. Yeah, if you do separate your eggs, save those egg yolks. Use them for a French buttercream would be really nice filling. Make pudding out of them, really anything you love. Don't waste those egg yolks. All right, so we've got a little frothiness happening here. You can see I've got just like a cappuccino style bubble situation going on. I'm going to slowly start reining in my sugar. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't want to weigh down my egg whites too heavily right off the bat. So I'm just going to lower the speed a bit. And all I'm going to do is slowly pour my sugar down the side of the bowl, just in like a nice gradual stream. And that's going to whip really nicely into our egg whites. Give it a second if it starts to build up a bit. And that's if you're following along with the recipe, that's half a cup of granulated sugar. And here we're going to let it go. While it does that, I'm going to go ahead and start sifting my dry ingredients. So if you don't have a sifter, you can, we sort of talked about popping your almond flour into your food processor. You can actually pop both your almond flour and your confectioner sugar into a food processor. And you can skip sifting if you do that. And that was regular sugar. Yeah, granulated sugar in with my egg white. All right, it's looking pretty good. All right, now before I finish with that, you'll see at this point, let's check out our peak. So if we think about peaks when we talk about meringue, if I take this out of the bowl and I kind of flopsy it over, see this kind of Dairy Queen situation we have going on here? So that's a classic soft peak. It kind of floops right over, doesn't really hold its shape very nicely. At this point, we're going to add in our food coloring. So this way, by the time our meringue is at medium or stiff peaks, it'll be completely red. We'll have it the color that we want, and we won't have to worry about over whipping it by the time our color is incorporated. Now you could add other flavorings at this point as well. If you wanted to add vanilla to your shells, if you want to add spices, like if you're doing an eggnog shell, any sort of orange zest or anything that you feel now is the time that you can add that into your meringue. That'll work nicely. So I'm going to go pretty generous on this color. And we might have to add more, but this is the red color. I've got Red Rouge here from Satin Ice. I'm going to get this working in because I want that really beautiful Christmassy red. You can see right away, I'm definitely going to have to add more. See how it's like a pinky, which is lovely, but not what I'm going for. Red is one of those colors that you will find you have to be like overly generous with red. If you've worked with red before, you know what I'm talking about. It's a little extra. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, so let's finish this guy up. Is spatula here. All right. And again, I'm going to add a little bit more red. And we use a non-gel color as well. So it will take, but the issue with that is if you're working with liquid color versus gel color, and you'll find even with gel color, the red is a little more liquidy than some of those other colors you're going to get. But the liquid color is really going to thin out your meringue. And so to avoid changing the consistency of your macaroons, gel color is very much preferred for this recipe. That's a good question. I know your name says Baroness, but I think your name was it Kimberly? I think it was Kimberly. If I remember right. But it actually does not change the flavor. So like if I tasted this meringue right now, and this still is not red enough for me, but if I tasted it, it's kind of the same deal as like red velvet cake. You aren't really going to taste the red. But in this case, if you do want a vibrant color, you are going to have to really be generous. One of those unfortunate things. You can also make white macaroons if you are very adverse to food coloring, or you can use natural dyes, or even I've experimented with using freeze-dried fruit powders, can be really nice. And that could be good as well. Now I am adding just a touch more because I'm going to just get it in just a bit. I want a really red color. I won't settle for that. It's still going to be a little pinky, but that's okay. Now, in a lot of macaroon recipes, you'll notice this is a French meringue that we made. We didn't cook the sugar syrup in any way. All we did was add raw egg whites to raw sugar and whip them together. That's a French meringue. All I'm doing here is adding my dry ingredients to my meringue. I'm not going too crazy in terms of we're not making any sort of paste. This is kind of what I feel like is the easiest way of making macaroons. This is how I've always done it, how I'll continue to do it. So this to me is my favorite. So I add just about half of my dry ingredients. And as I fold, you'll see I'm working with a silicone spatula and I'm digging from the bottom of the bowl and lifting up. And this is sort of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. But you can see I'm turning the bowl with one hand, which is totally optional, and just lifting up the meringue with the other. The one thing you don't want to do with macaroons is go in and really stir very aggressively. That's going to deflate the meringue unevenly. You're going to end up with macaroons that crack or spread if you overdo it. So all I'm doing is just gently incorporating just until it soaks up that dry stuff. And it's not going to be completely. And at this point, I'm going to add the rest. It's a two-step process here. All right, let's keep folding. And this does take a minute. And you're going to be like, wow, my arm is tired. And it will get tired, and that's fine. It's a workout. Then you get to eat macarons, so it all works out. Oh, hi. Yes, and this recording will be, hi, oh, I'm so sorry, but welcome. You didn't really miss much. But this will be posted on YouTube, I believe in 48 hours. And the recipe, maybe Kana can share it one more time for us. Would be so great. Possible. If not, if you scroll up in the chat just a little bit, you'll see the link for the recipe. All right, and you could see, so I'm starting to get my batter together, right? This is super thick, but all of my dry ingredients have been absorbed. We're going to keep folding. And what we're looking for is a lava-like consistency. Oh, thank you so much, Kana. So this is where it can all go wrong. No pressure. But if you overfold your macarons to the point where the batter becomes too liquidy and loose, that's when they're going to really spread and crack and make a big mess. If you underfold, you'll sort of get these very plump, kind of pleasant little cookie hamburgers, which can be kind of fun. They're just a little fatter than the macarons that you might be used to. So if in doubt, you're going to err on the side of underfolding if you're new to making macarons. That's what I would do if I were you, because underfolded macarons will come out perfectly fine, but overfolded, you're going to have a lot of problems. And you know you're doing a good job if you're running out of breath, unless you're just in much better shape than me, which you probably are. All right, so let's check where we're at. So you can see it's still thick. If I run this way, it's leaving a sort of ribbon in the bowl, but it's on the thicker side. What I essentially want is I want to be able to lift up my spatula and let my batter drop, and it should just sort of ooze into the rest of the batter very slowly. And this is where people get frustrated with macarons, because it's not an exact science. You can't say, oh, I'm folding for exactly this many minutes. Your folding might be more efficient than my folding, or vice versa. Might take longer, might take less time, but the goal is to just be as gentle as you can. So this is where I'm going to stop. So take a look at this. You see this sort of lava-like flow that's happening. If I lift this up, I just let it flow like lava, very thick. Yeah, why does folding change the consistency? So as the meringue sort of breaks down and sort of like liquefies a little bit and melds with the sugars, when they're dry, they're kind of a dry ingredient, but as they absorb into moisture, they sort of become wet. And so the whole mixture just kind of turns into this like really pretty batter as you work. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we're looking for. All right, so I have my tip, I have my bag, and you don't want to let this batter sit, right? We want to work with it right away. So what we're going to do is fold down the top of our bag, make this sort of top. That's going to keep the top nice and clean while we fill. Now open it up, get our tip in. And I'm just going to trim right above the tip. Let's grab my scissor here. You don't want to go too far. You don't want it to pop out. So when I push my tip in, I should just clear it. Not by too much, just a little bit there. If you cut all the way down to here, you'll find at some point it's going to pop right out. The other thing I like to do is just give it a twist and push the bag into the tip. That's going to keep it from flowing out as you fill, because of course this is sort of a liquidy batter. And I love to steal my husband's, this is like a beer mug. She's very good for filling buttercream bags. So that's my tool of choice, but any sort of drinking glass will work. If you have a partner with you helping you out, they can hold the bag. And all I'm going to do is pour this batter right in, nice and gentle. Scrape it all out. Dun, 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 dun. Perfect. All right. Let's get that aside. I'm just going to give that a quick rinse because we are going to have to use this later. So hold that side so it doesn't all dry on there. Okay. Perfect. We'll need that bowl later for buttercream. Okay, so once it's in, we're going to fold this up, close up the top, and just give it a twist, just to seal. And you can see because we stuffed our tip, nothing is coming out the other side before we're ready. So we can go ahead and put that right next to us. Get our baking sheets. And I need 2 baking sheets for this recipe. I did line them with parchment. If you are nervous about piping even rounds, you can also get the Silpats that have the little rounds printed on them for you. Those are amazing. You can also trace a quarter on your parchment paper. Just space them about a ½ inch apart. Take a little quarter, trace circles, and then flip your parchment over and you'll have your very own template. That could be good as well. And so when we're piping, I'm going to open this up. Now, instead of pushing from the very back of the bag, I'm actually going to pinch halfway down. That's going to give me really good control over my bag. I'm a righty, so my right hand is halfway down and my left hand is just holding the back of the bag to keep anything from coming out the other side. And now what you're going to do is just go straight up and down and just push, apply pressure, keep applying pressure, release the pressure, and scoot off to the side. And this angle is not going to be great for this, but as I work, hopefully you'll be able to see, and I'll see if I can get you guys a little bit closer without making too much of a mess in my batter. Hold that thought, come to me. Okay. So sorry for the shakiness. There we go. All right. So if you can see here, I'm holding it straight down and I'm pushing, 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 release, and just scoot off to the side. Okay, and I totally should have done that third angle today. Man, I didn't. How can I do this so you can see better? Push, 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 push. Release. Push, push, push. Release. The one thing I'm not doing is swirling my bag. I'm just holding it in one spot. I'm going to do this sideways so you can see. Push, 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 push. I'm not moving it. And then just scoot off to the side. Push, push, push. Hi. I don't know if this is going to be any better either. Yeah, we'll just keep it like that. You surprised me. Now the downside to doing it like I'm about to do it, I'm doing it sideways so you guys can see. I'm going to get one fat side and one flat side. So don't make fun of my tray when it comes out of the oven, because I did this for you. But you can see I'm just holding in one spot. I'm not swirling it around. I feel like people are always tempted to swirl. This is going to cause cracks if I do this, because I've now incorporated like little bits of air. I thought they were going to see better. That's all right. They saw my face for a minute. And you can see as they sit, they do tend to spread just a touch. That's when you've done a good job. If you find as you go, you see how they're sort of settling. They're settling, they're smoothing out. Any sort of tips that I get when I pipe, call these like nipples. You get like a little Hershey kiss after you pipe. If those don't settle out on their own, you could just wet your finger with a little bit of water and just press like a little magic eraser. I'm just going to take a little water on my finger. And see this little, I don't even know if you could see that, but it's there. Boop. And it just goes away. Yeah, so Linda and Tony. So if you saw that, let me know if that helps. Especially if your macaron batter is underfolded a little bit. You're going to get those a bit more. But you'll notice as I pipe, at the end, after I release that pressure of my bag, what I'm going to do is just scoot off to the side. And that keeps you from getting those Hershey kisses a little bit. Scoot off. Push. Scoot off. This tray is so wonky because I was sort of like watching the camera as I was. The next one I'm going to make really pretty. But you see this does make a lot. Now I'm piping these about, I would say like $half size. And I am going to give them like a little bit of a tap. Now I'm going to do a much nicer job for you guys. If you do want to add any sort of sprinkles or anything like that, you do want to do that when they're wet. And if you are new to making macarons, I would definitely recommend keeping them small. Larger macarons have a tendency to be a little bit tougher to bake through. And they do tend to crack a little bit more. They're just tougher. So smaller sometimes is just easier. Should they all be the same size? So yes, they should all be the same size as much as possible. So like if you like using a template for that, you can definitely do that. And if you are baking different sizes, which you absolutely can do, and to give you like a little sneak peek for like Valentine's Day, if you want to make a little heart, you could do the different shapes like that for macarons. You could do letters for macarons if you want to do big J's for like joy or anything like that. You can do any shapes you like, but each tray, look at my hands, each tray should be the same size so they bake evenly. If you do want to mix up sizes, just separate out large ones on one tray, small ones on another. So this way you aren't going to have issues with some of them being overbaked and some of them being underbaked at the same time. I like the heart. Those are so fun. We just started talking about Valentine's Day classes, so I have like Valentine's Day on the brain a little bit. All right, so two schools of thought when it comes to baking macarons. So some people say you have to let them rest until they form a skin on top. And what that's going to do is they develop this sort of dry exterior. So if I were to press it with my finger, if I let this sit for about half an hour, it's going to have this skin. Nothing is going to stick. Some people say that that is like the thing to do. Very impatient baker, I just throw them right in. So take that with a grain of salt, whatever you feel. You can, because you get 2 trays with this recipe, you can let one sit. You can bake the other one right away. But you do want to bake them at 325 to keep the color intact. If you're working with white shells or something like that, sometimes having an empty sheet tray at the very top of your oven on the top rack will help protect your color a little bit. That can be helpful. But I am going to bake these two at the same time, which I wouldn't normally do. Normally, I would say bake one tray at a time. Today, I'm going to bake them both. So we have a nice variety. So I'm going to get them right in. 325, and we'll talk about how to know when they're done. Ideally, they're going to develop a little foot, a nice little frilly pied along the bottom. They should take about 8 to 12 minutes, depending on size. So I know that's a big range, but that's what we're looking for. And I'm going to quickly rinse out my bowls because we're going to get right into the butter sauce. This is just an American style buttercream. You can fill macarons with anything you like. Oh, here we go. Oh, wait, I missed one. It went too fast. Are you going to rest them before baking to develop a skin? Oh, good. So I hope I answered that question. And do you use convection? I do not. For macarons, I find that convection, all that air moving around, that's so great for chewy cookies and chocolate chip cookies and things like that. All that air moving around for macarons tends to cause some uneven baking. You could also get these very funny macarons that sort of like end up like this. They dome on one side because the air is kind of blowing them. And it is a very light, delicate cookie. So that can kind of blow your parchment paper around too. So if you are using parchment, just be careful about convection. Glue down your corners if you have to, or switch to a cell pat because that'll keep them nice and weighed down. But yes, so filling macarons, you can fill with anything you like. That could be jam, it could be caramel, it could be ganache. Today we're just doing nice and simple, just an American style buttercream. Nothing crazy. I'm gonna move this out of the way. So I got butter, I got confectioner's sugar, I got all the good stuff. And I'm not making a big batch. I think in the recipe I said a cup of butter. Did I say a cup of butter? What did I say? Someone remind me when you can. I'm only going with a quarter cup of butter. That'll go small. So I got some butter, I got some powdered sugar. We put too much granulated sugar in the batter. It is too dry. You mean too much powdered sugar? Tell me. And hold on, because I mixed something like this back up here. Here we go. My oven has high bake or low bake. Should I do low bake? High bake and low bake. I would try low bake, but I cannot say for sure. I would say low bake. We were trying to follow the recipe card. It's too dry. Was that confectioner's sugar? With the almond flour? Is that where you're? No. I would keep folding a bit. All right, we're beating up our butter. And it is cold here. It's winter. So my butter, as much as it's at room temperature, I would not say it's warm, which is fine. American style buttercream is very forgiving. I'm getting my sugar. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt. That's going to balance the sweetness a little bit. I'm also going to add my favorite thing ever, my vanilla bean paste, which I'm in love with. I feel like I carry it around in my purse. And I'm just going to beat those up for a second, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of milk just to bring them together. And then we're going to make our royals. Does it really? Hannah, that's a question for you. I have no idea. What was the paste? Oh, sorry. That's my Nielsen Massey. I love this stuff. This is vanilla bean paste. Nielsen Massey, which I put in everything. Great alternative to vanilla extract. It has like all the little beans in there, which is so fun. You can see them on my finger. Those little flecks of vanilla bean. And it just smells like, it's like a holiday candle. So good. All right, a little bit of milk. I'm just adding this just by eye. It's about a tablespoon or so. And you want your buttercream to be on the thicker side, but we do want it to be pipeable. But of course, you could also use Italian meringue buttercream, French buttercream. Yes, so Emma, so granulated sugar is for to add to the egg whites, but powdered sugar is in with the almond flour and confectioner sugar. So you do want both of those things. All right, so that's our quick buttercream. And we could beat this up a little bit more, but we're kind of in a rush to get into the royal icing. So I'm just going to go with it, but feel free to beat that until it's like really light and fluffy. That'll increase your volume a little bit. I'm going to put this right into a piping bag, and I'm not going to use a tip. You absolutely can. Even the same size tip you used for the shells would be fine. But for filling macaroons, I feel like, you know, why clean another tip? But if you're being very fancy about it, you absolutely can. Yeah, Erica, I love that paste. That's like my favorite thing. But Emma, let me know if that helps. Nice thick buttercream. All right, we're going to set this aside for a bit. We don't need that yet. Let's rinse this out super fast. We'll get some royal icing going. And this is an egg white based royal icing. If you are averse to using raw egg whites, you can also make it with meringue powder. You can do an egg-free version with corn syrup. I've been seeing aquafaba recipes that are really fun for royal icing. You could do that. Oh, Emma, I'm so sorry. Oh no, you're starting over. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta start over. Although, you know, why not just bake them? You could use them to top ice cream. You can crumble them up. Don't waste cookie crumbles, you know? All right. So I'm gonna get my whisk in. I'm gonna get one egg white. Just pop that right in. And I am using cream of tartar. That's gonna help stabilize my egg whites a little bit. You'll see that in the recipe. That is optional. You don't have to use cream of tartar. But that is an acid. That's a stabilizer. It's just gonna help everything kind of end up nicely. Get it all whipped together and let it set at room temperature. You'll bake them too. Yeah, definitely. All right, so I'm just gonna whip this up a bit. Got powdered sugar ready to go. And we're just whipping this until it's like a little bit frothy. I'm gonna give my macarons they're looking very nice, so that's good. Oh. All right. So you see I've got my egg whites at a nice kind of frothy consistency. I'm going to add half of my powdered sugar and just beat that in. And then I'm going to add the rest. And we'll talk about consistency of royal icing a little bit. All right, you can see that it's nice and dissolved. Let's add the rest in here. And so we're piping on macaron shells. So we do want this to be a little bit on the thicker side. Why am I not using? Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm just so used to using raw egg whites for this that it doesn't bother me. But yes, you can absolutely use meringue powder. I know. I agree. It's just as a baker, I've eaten so many raw eggs in my lifetime. It's a hard habit to break. What speed do you use on your mixer? Right now I'm using like a low to medium speed. This is a Breville. So actually this mixer doesn't have numbers on it. It only has speeds. I love this mixer. I got this like 10 years ago. I also have like KitchenAids downstairs, but for whatever reason, I'm like very partial to this Breville. And it's also just such a cute little thing. But a low to medium speed is great, just so you don't cover your kitchen in powdered sugar by accident. I feel like we've all done that before. And we're just going to beat this together. If I have to add more powdered sugar, I will. I want a nice stiff consistency. Increase a bit to high. All right, and with royal icing, so you can really whip this for a long time. I could go and continue to whip this for 3 or 4 minutes just to really get a little bit of a peak going. Because we're using this on macarons, I'm not that worried about it. So as long as it's nice and smooth, we're good to go. And you see, I have some colors that I've already made here. So I have red, I have green, I have another green, I have a white. I'm going to bag up this white as well, just with a little bit of a smaller tip. And how much time should we bake the macarons? So it's going to be anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes, depending on how large you pipe them. So I'm going to check mine in about a minute just to see where they're at. Maybe they'll be ready. I could show you guys. But essentially, you're baking them just until they release from the pan. They should kind of settle back down. You'll see that. Hopefully mine will be ready before yours. So I'll show you exactly what to look for. And I'm not flavoring my royal icing because we're using so little of it on the cookies. It's kind of seems like a little bit of a waste to flavor it. You can absolutely add vanilla. You can add peppermint extract. You can have as much fun as you want. And if you are working with these bags and you're nervous about kind of escaping out the back, you'll see I tied my other ones. I do that just with like a little strip of plastic wrap. That to me, especially if like you're decorating with kids, a little bit of plastic wrap, just kind of crisscross and tie it really nice and tight. That'll keep the bag from exploding out the backside. So it just keeps it together. All right, let's take a peek at our macarons. Let's see how they do. Hold that thought. Take a little peek. Almost, probably about 2 more minutes. And I'll show you what they look like. But in the meantime, let's take a look at these green ones. So what we're looking for when macarons are ready, you want them to be nice and smooth on the top. If you do have some with cracks, it's no big deal. We sort of talked about crumbling them over ice cream or making ice cream sandwiches and things like that. But ideally, you want them nice and smooth. They should have this nice little ruffle called the pied running around the outside. And you'll find as they bake, you'll see them. If you're looking in your oven, using your oven light, of course, not opening the oven door, you'll see that they sort of puff as they bake. They'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then as they finish baking, they come back down again. And they'll sort of end up with this settled shape where you have just this light ruffle if you've done everything right. So at that point, if you're concerned, if you're like, oh, I don't know if they're ready, you could take a little offset spatula or a knife. You could just lift one up and check out the bottom. So if they're really sticky and wet and they won't come off the baking sheet at all, ideally, you're going to put them in for another minute or 2, maybe longer. But if you pull them out and they're nice and smooth, you take one off and it's still nice and soft in the center, they're perfectly cooked. So that's what we're looking for. We want them to be set, but still nice and soft and chewy in the middle. And if they're hollow on the inside, sometimes that's a meringue issue. If you over whip or under whip your meringue, uneven folding can sometimes cause air pockets that'll make them a little bit hollow inside. But I feel like that's the least of the bad problems that can happen. I feel like hollow shells are not so bad, but that can definitely happen. And the more comfortable you get with whipping that meringue to a nice medium stiff peak, folding really evenly, you're going to kind of eliminate those hollow shells a little bit there. All right, so we're ready to fill. So we are decorating some different designs today. And obviously the type of designs are totally up to you. You can have as much fun with this as you like. I had some leftover chocolate filling as well. I have some ready here that we can look at. So if you're really comfortable with royal icing and you want to do like wet on wet or anything like that, you can do designs like this where you kind of pipe on top of your shells in white royal icing, add a little royal icing and make those designs with wet on wet kind of techniques. Or we can just pipe straight on and make cute little royal icing designs. And of course, I sprayed these all with glitter. So if you're like, why are they so shiny? I glittered them because I felt like that was fun. But we are going to do a mix of all of those things. But I do want to check my macarons one more time. And does banging the raw shells on the counter help? So what that does is it brings any air bubbles that are on the bottom to the surface. You will then want to go in either with a toothpick or any sort of sharp device and just pop those little air bubbles. So you don't get those little air bubbles. Actually, you could see one here. Oh, it's hard to see, but you can see like one little air bubble there. You just want to pop those before they go in. Thank you so much, Zoe. All right, so let me just check. Let's check and see. They are looking really pretty. Let's check and see if they're done. So here's my one with the heart on it that I made earlier. So this is very hot, so I'm not going to put it down. But if we are checking if they're ready, so if I pull them out of the oven, they look like they're ready. I took my little offset and I'm just going to lift it up and see. So it's nice and flat. It's very delicate. It's hot. It's very soft, but you can see I have that nice pied. They are very soft. I can kind of squish the center. I would say about like 30 more seconds and these would be perfect, but we're just going to take them out because we're sort of rushing. And what I do like to do is if I feel like they could just go a touch longer, if they're just like a little soft for my liking, I'll let them cool on the baking sheet. That carryover heat will keep them going a little bit. But if you are like, oh, they're ready, or even if you've overbaked them, yeah, I did do a heart, yes. If you overbake them a bit, immediately just take your parchment if you're feeling brave and just kind of scoop them right onto your cold countertop. That's going to stop the cooking process. Then I'll keep them perfectly soft. So I'm going to pull out the other one. Here's my last tray. And you can see a couple of them did stick together. I got we call these twins. So if you get twins, while they're hot, just take a little paring knife, nice sharp one, and just go right in between while they're hot. And that way they're going to separate right out. And how do you know they're overbaked? So if I pull one of these off and it comes like easily right off the tray without me even using any sort of spatula, you can see like a little bit stuck. That's a good sign. But if I touch it and it's not soft in the middle, if it's just crunchy all the way through, they are overbaked. Now, there are some options when they're overbaked. It's not a lost cause. The best thing to do if you have overbaked macaroons is just to fill them with any sort of moist filling, like a buttercream or a ganache. Seal them up, sandwich them together, and just put them in the refrigerator overnight. And the moisture in the filling is going to soften your shells up again. So that's going to be an easy way of just bringing them back to life if they are a little bit overbaked. All right, so I thought it'd be fun today to do like a two-tone situation. So we'll do some red and green together. We'll make them really cute like that. We are going to let these cool for a second before we start with any sort of royal icing. So let's start with the green instead. That way we can get going without waiting too long. And I do have some different designs that you can kind of check out here. Obviously, you get as creative with these as you like. We'll start simple to more complicated. So simple designs. And I do like to decorate them before I fill them. That's up to you. You can fill them first and then decorate them after. That would be fine too. But the simple design would be just to take a little macaron and just maybe to make some lines. Just on one side, just like that. And here's where I'm going to pull over all my sprinkles. While that royal icing is wet. Oh, you ever need one more hand? Oh, there we go. While my icing is wet, I could take any sort of like holiday festive sprinkles. I have some sparkling sugar, I have gold, I have green, I have red. And while your icing is wet, you can just kind of finish them off like that. So that's just like one really easy, but really pretty design that you can absolutely use. Another, as you get more confident, is a little tree. So if I'm working with a green shell, maybe I want to go with a white tree. When you're cutting holes in your royal icing bags, start as tiny as possible. You're going to think, oh, that hole is way too small, but you'll be surprised. And I like to, if I have a plastic bag and it's flat, I like to push just on the sides of the bag where the lines are, and that's going to make it really nice and round. Versus sometimes you get like a really flat edge there. So test it a little on your parchment just to make sure your tip is good. And then a little tree. I'm just going to go back and forth. Same idea. Nice and simple. Little tree design. You could put like a little star on top. Same idea. You could do the little sparkling sugars. I've got some fun sprinkle mixes here that I can kind of play with. just to make it really fun and festive. And those are two little simple designs. So if I want to get a little bit more complicated, like let's say we'll do this little candy cane here. So I have my red and I need white as well. And all I'm going to do is pipe dots. So let's start with the white. So I'm going to make little dots in the shape, can you see that, of a candy cane. Just working my way around. And if you're a perfectionist, feel free to take as much time with this as you want. I'm just not that type. I feel like food is for eating, you know. All I'm doing is filling those spaces with red. And here's where your toothpick is going to really come in handy. Although you can use one of those little scribes as well. Oh, I should have definitely taken one out before I started that. Hold on. There we go. Hey. It's kind of like magic. You just take your toothpick and then you go around the edge all the way down and then all the way around again. Ta-da! So all I did was go around the border on both sides. Get this cute little candy cane. So fun. All right, and so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you. Tell me if I should keep going or if I should start filling. You guys tell me. What's a cute one? Holiday sweater. Keep going. All right, Mia. Feel you. Holiday sweaters are fun because, like, who knows what it looks like? It could be anything. Add some white. You would like to see how to fill. All right, perfect. So we're going to get into filling now that my red should be cool enough. All right, so let's put these aside. And we could definitely swing back and do more of those at the end for anybody who's curious. But let's go ahead and start with our filling. So we've got our buttercream. And if you did want to have a more decorative design, oh, can I use the color, the powder spray? Absolutely. And that's going to be after we fill, so that's perfect. If you do want a more decorative design for your filling, you can also use a star tip if you prefer. I'm just cutting sort of around. I'm just going to push it down. And you do want to line up like sizes. Oh, I will definitely do a wreath. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that at the end. So like sizes. So you'll notice like some of mine are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. So we want to kind of pair. We want to pair like sizes as much as possible. And what I like to do if I was in the bakery, let's say, I would line them all up like this to be very efficient. And then what I would do is just flip over my ones that are getting the filling. So you can go right down the line and just fill them all up in one go without needing to go ahead and flip as you fill. So I know it's tempting to overfill, and you can fill macarons as much or as little as you like, but all I do is just one small layer of filling. You notice I do leave a little bit of a gap at the edge. So this way, when you push them together, you just get this perfectly filled, cute little macaron, not overdone. You can absolutely pipe it and go, you know, little dots all the way around and make it really fat and generous. Anything that works for you is fine. But I love like just a little demure, you know, filling is really pretty. And I do love these greens and reds together. I think they're so fun. Two-tone is like, I love two-tone macarons. I feel like they're so cute. You can also fill and go a little bit bigger on the filling and roll these in crushed candy canes. That would be really cute as well. That'd be super fun. That's about it. I would say like for the designs, I do like to let them dry a bit before I use them. So this way I'm not going to mess them up as I use them. But you see with that royal icing, they do set very quickly, especially if you've got a little tip going. They're pretty fast. But I will definitely, for those who want to see it, I will definitely do a wreath. And we could do a wet on wet, and we could do just a dry on, right on the macaron wreath. Can I replace the sugar with swerve? You know, it's funny. I would say definitely look up when you're for the royal icing specifically, or for the buttercream. I would look up, specific recipes. I don't want to say for sure exactly what substitutions in terms of, sweeteners and things like that. How long will filled macaroons last? So yes, so in terms of filled macaroons, so if you are planning to make these and serve them within a day or two, I just want to pipe one joy. So fun, joy. If you're going to pack these and make them and serve them within a day or two, just put them into an airtight container. Make sure they don't get any air exposure. You want to keep them as moist as possible. But in the refrigerator for up to 2 days, even 3 days is fine. Past that point, I would freeze them. Same idea, a freezer-safe airtight container, a single layer, or if you're stacking, if you haven't done really intricate designs, you can stack 2 or 3 layers as long as you put parchment in between. They can stay frozen for up to 2 months or so, depending on the filling that you're using. And just pull them out and bring them to room temperature, and they're like fresh. So freezing is always really good for macarons. I don't love storing them at room temperature for an extended period of time. You can do that depending on what your filling is. But I would say refrigerator or freezer is the best way to store for sure. All right, so for anyone heading out, thank you. For those who are staying, I'm going to do some wreaths and I'm going to do some snowflakes and things like that. But if you are heading out, before you do, I do want to say thank you and wish you a happy holidays. And I hope I see you at more classes in the coming weeks. But for those who are staying, we're going to jump right into wreaths. Maybe we'll do them on here because that'd be cute. So if we're doing a wet wreath, I have one here. It's hard to hold these and pipe at the same time, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm just going to fill this in with some white royal icing. And you can fill it all the way, or you could just fill the border. I just felt like going all the way for some reason. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to take, I actually have 2 different greens, but you can really just do it with one. I'm going to take some dots. Oh, and that really just splooshed out. But all I'm going to do is have little dots all the way around. Close-ish together. You don't have to be so concerned about where they are. And then you will need a toothpick, which I keep using. Hey. Thank you. And all we're doing is working our way around to make a wreath. We're just dragging. So before that sets, if you want to add dragées and things like that, now is your chance while it's wet. So like some little dragées running around. If I am adding red berries and things like that, you can do it when it's wet. But I also sometimes, just for like the perfect little berries, I would wait until it's dry. And then you can add your little berries on top. But that's just like a super cute little wreath. And you can do that without the white as well. You can even just pipe little lines like this all the way around. You can see I'm just sort of pulling back as I go. Till I go all the way around. And I think it was Linda who was saying use the powder spray. It's a good time to do that. Same idea, pop on your little dragées and things like that while it's wet. And then where's my powder spray? Powder spray is great. I feel like for holiday macarons specifically, like look how fun this is. It just makes it so much more fun. So store them in the refrigerator. Yeah, 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days in the refrigerator, definitely. Longer than that, I would definitely freeze. I've even just frozen them on the day I've made them just to keep them super fresh. If I know I'm not going to finish them, it's so much easier just to bring them out and let them sit at room temperature than it is to worry about like, oh, how long have they been in there? How many days has it been? You know, that whole thing. Yeah, toothpick is the MVP. Absolutely. All right, little snowflake action. A little snowflake, you could add some dots. You could add a little silver dot in the middle. And I do love a little like white sparkling sugar on snowflakes. I feel like it's so pretty. Just gives it like a little something. I know, those are so fun. And I do love like a little like joy, you know, like just a little holiday touch is so cute. Any others? Last chance. I know we're wrapping up. We're running short on time. Thank you guys so much. Taking final requests if you have them. If not, I will bite into one just so you could see the texture. So soft. Look at that. That's so nice. They're yummy. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this class. It will be up on YouTube if you need it for reference in the next couple of days. It was so much fun baking with you. Thank you so much, Kana, for all your help. I know this thing is like right in my face. Happy holidays. See you guys soon. Thank you. Thank you so much.